Welcome back to Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. This is part 2 of Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. We got cut off because the first video uploaded was ready and I don't know why, but my laptop glitched us off. But we're forging ahead, people of Earth. The time is currently 1:09 PM on the 10th of January 2025. And we continue on with Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. So I'll start with the paragraph where we got cut off, just for the sake of coherence and continuation. Ali Baba saw the robbers each unbridle his horse and hobble it. Then all took off their saddlebags, which proved to be full of gold and silver. The man, who seemed to be the captain, presently pushed forwards, load on shoulder, through thorns and thickets, till he came up to a certain spot where he uttered these strange words: "Open, O Sim Sim." And forthwith appeared a wide doorway in the face of the rock. The robbers went in, and last of all their chief, and then the portal shut of itself. It's kind of like the inner earth theory that there's civilization living inside our earth. Saw a video about that yesterday, some Russian guy, and although the landscape, it did look kind of like a gateway. It could just be a fissure in the rock, but it was interesting. Gave me pause for thought. I believe in all possibilities of anything human beings have ever imagined, or that gets little kernels of truth that get left in our mythological lore or in our fairy stories, ancient race memories sometimes. It's all very fascinating. Long while they stayed within the cave, whilst Ali Baba was constrained to abide perched upon the tree, reflecting that if he came down, peradventure the band might issue forth that very moment and seize him and slay him. At last he had determined to mount one of the horses and, driving on his asses, to return townwards, when suddenly the portal drew open. It says drew open, but they mean drew open. Just say. There's quite a few typos in this book. It's beautifully decorated, but not very well edited, says she, who still makes her own typos and autocorrect fucks my vibe every time I try to write a message to anyone. It drives me batshit crazy, but it is what it is. The robber chief was first to issue forth. Then, standing at the entrance, he saw and counted his men as they came out. And lastly, he spake the magical words, "Shut, O Sim Sim." Whereat the door closed of itself. When all had passed muster and review, each slung on his saddlebags and bridled his own horse, and as soon as ready they rode off, led by the leader, in the direction whence they came. Ali Baba remained still perched on the tree and watched their departure, nor would he descend until what time they were clean gone out of sight, lest perchance one of them return and look around and descry him. Then he thought within himself, I too will try the virtue of those magical words, and see if at my bidding the door will open and close. So he called out aloud, "Open, O Sim Sim," and no sooner had he spoken than straightway the portal flew open and he entered within. I would have been terrified. I don't know what's waiting in there for you. It was very brave and audacious of him indeed. Yes, my darling girl. He saw a large cavern, and a vaulted, in height equalling the stature of a full-grown man, and it was hewn in the live stone and lighted up with light that came through air holes and bull's-eyes in the upper surface of the rock, which formed a roof. He had expected to find naught save outer gloom in this robber's den, and he was surprised to see the whole room filled with bales of all manner stuffs, and heaped up from sole to ceiling with camel loads of silks and brocades and embroidered cloths, and mounds on mounds of vari-coloured carpetings. Besides which he espied coins, golden and silver, without measure or account, some piled upon the ground, and others bound in leathern bags and sacks. Seeing these goods and monies in such abundance, Ali Baba determined in his mind that not during a few years only, but for many generations, thieves must have stored their gains and spoils in this place. When he stood within the cave, its door had closed upon him, yet he was not dismayed, since he had kept in memory the magical words, and he took no heed of the precious stuffs around him, but applied himself only and wholly to the sacks of Ashrafis, the coins. Yes, my darling. You're such a cheeky birdie today. Oh, you've been a cheeky birdie all day for the last 3 or 4 days. You've been a very happy bird. You've been a very happy bird. Mummy likes it when you're a happy bird. Yes, she does. Yes, she does. Of these he carried out as many as he judged sufficient burden for the beasts. Then he loaded them upon his animals, and carried this plunder with sticks and fuel, so none might discern the bags, but might think that he was carrying home his usual ware. That was wise, wasn't it? Lastly, he called out, "Shut, O Sim Sim," and forthwith the door closed, for the spell so wrought that whensoever any entered the cave, its portal shut of itself behind him, and as he issued therefrom, the same would neither open nor close again till he had pronounced the words, "Shut, O Sim Sim." Presently, having laden his asses, Ali Baba urged them before him with all speed to the city, and reaching home, he drove them into the yard, and, shutting close the outer door, took down first the sticks, and after the bags of gold which he carried in to his wife. She felt them, and finding them full of coin, suspected that Ali Baba had been robbing, and fell to berating and blaming him for that he should do so ill a thing. Quoth Ali Baba to his wife, "Indeed, I am no robber, and rather do thou rejoice with me at our good fortune." It's kind of weird ethics there, because he technically is a robber, but he stole from 40 thieves. So if you're stealing from thieves to enrich your wife and your family, is it really stealing? Let me think about that. What would 40 thieves do to a man who stole from him, though? A lot. Oh, do I get kisses? Oh, I get kisses. What did I do to deserve kisses? All right. Quoth Ali Baba to his wife. Oh, we read that part. He wants her to rejoice with him at their good fortune. Hereupon he told her of his adventure, and began to pour the gold from the bags in heaps before her, and her sight was dazzled by the sheen, and her heart delighted at his recital and adventures. Then she began counting the gold, whereat quoth Ali Baba, O silly woman, how long wilt thou continue turning over the coin? Now let me dig a hole wherein to hide this treasure, that none may know its secret. Don't know if I want to drink my water with chewed up sultana in it. Thanks, Charlie. You weird little bird. Oh, it's not bad, it's just perish the thought. Well, you know, Mexicans drink tequila with worms in it. What's a bit of manky chewed up sultana between friends? Just saying. I wish those bloody gravers would arrive soon. I can't wait to sharpen them and practice with them. Ah, well. Patience, Tanya. Patience. I get very excited. I get very impulsive and impatient. It's one of my charms. Quoth she, right as thy rede, still would I weigh the moneys and have some inkling of their amount. And he replied, as thou pleasest, but see thou tell no man, or woman, or child for that matter. Keep stum when you got that amount of gold in your possession. How did I get lipstick all over my hand? Breaking out with weird lumps too now. It's just the hydrochloric acid coming out through my skin. I've still got heaps more copper that I need to polish too. It's like another 3 days worth of work. I should just give it all to charity and give up, shouldn't I? By the gods. But I won't, because they look lovely when they're done and I enjoy them. So fuck it, I'm allowed to have nice things. But they are a little bit to maintain. Anyway, where were we? So she went off in haste to Kasim's home to borrow weights and scales wherewith she might balance the Ashrafis and make some reckoning of their value. And when she could not find Kasim, she said to his wife, lend me, I pray thee, thy scales for a moment. Oh, she couldn't keep her mouth shut, could she, the silly cow? Oh, dear goodness. Honestly. Stupid as a stupid does sometimes. Replied her sister-in-law, hast thou need of the bigger balance or the smaller? And the other rejoined, I need not the large scales, give me the little. And her sister-in-law cried, stay here a moment while I look about and find thy want. With this pretext, Kasim's wife went aside and secretly smeared wax and suet over the pan of the balance, that she might know what thing it was Ali Baba's wife would weigh. For she made sure that, whatso it be, some bit thereof would stick to the wax and fat. So the woman took this opportunity to satisfy her curiosity, and Ali Baba's wife, suspecting naught thereof, carried home the scales and began to weigh the gold, whilst Ali Baba ceased not digging, and when the money was weighed, they twain, the two of them, stowed it into the hole, which they carefully filled up with earth. Then the good wife took back the scales to her kinswoman, all unknowing that an Ashrafi had adhered to the cup of the scales. How would you miss that though? A gold coin stuck in the scales. Like, wouldn't you check that you got all your gold back? I know I would. I'm a bit precious about what little bit of money I have. My dear goddess. Anyway. But when Kasim's wife espied the gold coin, she fumed with envy and wrath, saying to herself, So ho! They borrowed my balance to weigh out Ashrafis? And she marvelled greatly whence so poor a man as Ali Baba had gotten such store of wealth that he should be obliged to weigh it with a pair of scales. Now, after long pondering the matter, when her husband returned home at eventide, she said to him, Oh man, that oh man, oh manny, man, thou deemest thyself a weight of wealth and substance. But lo, thy brother Ali Baba is an emir by the side of thee and richer far than thou art. He hath such heaps of gold that he must needs weigh his monies with scales, whilst thou, forsooth, art satisfied to count thy coin. Whence knowest thou this? Asked Kasim. Oh, dear goodness. Just gotta quickly put a title, part 1 of this video. It's uploaded, and multitasking's a thing, people. You know, I'm a self-employed, unemployable, psychedelic, dreamy freak of nature, so I just have to work with what I have, babies. Work with what I have. Typos. I before E, except after C. Correct. Part 1. Right, on we go, babies. Save. Whence knowest thou this? Asked Kasim, and in answer his wife related all, anent the pair of scales, and how she found an Ashrafi stuck to them, and shewed him the gold coin which bore the mark and superscription of some ancient king. No sleep had Kasim all that night by reason of his envy and jealousy and covetous. He coveted. He was a greedy little motherfucker. And next morning he rose betimes, and going to Ali Baba said, O my brother, to all appearance thou art poor and needy, but in effect thou hast a store of wealth so abundant that perforce thou must weigh thy gold with scales. Quoth Ali Baba, What is thou sayest? I understand thee not. Make clear thy purport. And quoth Cassim with ready rage, Feign not that thou art ignorant of what I say, think not to deceive me. Then showing him the Ashrafi, he cried, Thousands of gold coins such as these thou hast put by, and meanwhile my wife found this one stuck to the cup of the scales. Then Ali Baba understood how both Cassim and his wife knew that he had store of Ashrafis, and said in his mind that it would not avail him to keep the matter hidden, but would rather cause ill will and mischief, and thus he was induced to tell his brother every whit concerning whit spelled W-H-I-T, concerning the bandits and also of the treasure trove in the cave. I think it means every detail. When he had heard the story, Cassim exclaimed, I would fain learn of thee the certainty of the place where thou foundest the monies, also the magical words whereby the door opened and closed, and I forewarn thee, and thou tell me not the whole truth. I will give notice of those Ashrafis to the Wali. Then shalt thou forfeit all thy wealth, and be disgraced, and thrown into jail. If only his wife had kept her stupid mouth shut and bothered to check the scales before she returned them to the original owners. But there, but for the grace of their Allah went they. Dear goodness. Thereupon Ali Baba told him his tale, not forgetting the magical words. And Cassim, who kept careful heed of all these matters, next day set out, driving 10 mules he had hired, and readily found the place which Ali Baba had described to him. And when he came to the aforesaid rock, and to the tree whereon Ali Baba had hidden himself, and he had made sure of the door, he cried in great joy, Open, O Tsim Tsim! The portal yawned wide at once, and Cassim went within and saw the piles of jewels and treasures lying ranged all around, and as soon as he stood amongst them, the door shut after him, as wont to do. He walked about in ecstasy, marvelling at the treasures, and when weary of admiration, he gathered together bags of Ashrafis, a sufficient load for his 10 mules, and placed them by the entrance in readiness to be carried outside and set upon the beasts. But by the will of Allah Almighty, he had clean forgotten the Kabbalistic words and cried out, Open, O Bali! Whereat the door refused to move. Astonished and confused beyond measure, he named the names of all manners of grains, save sesame, which had slipped from his memory as though he had never heard the word. Whereat, in his dire distress, he heeded not the Ashrafis that lay heaped at the entrance, and paced to and fro, backwards and forwards, within the cave, sorely puzzled and perplexed. The wealth whose sight had erewhile filled his heart with joy and gladness was now the cause of bitter grief and sadness. Cassim gave up all hope of the life which he by his greed and envy had so sore imperilled. It came to pass that at noontide the robbers, returning by that way, saw from afar some mules standing beside the entrance, and much as they marvelled at what had brought the beasts to that place, for inasmuch as Cassim by mischance had failed to tether or hobble them, they had strayed about the jungle and were browsing hither and thither. However, the thieves paid scant regard to their estrays, nor cared they to secure them, but only wondered by what means they had wandered so far from the town. Then, reaching the cave, the captain and his troop dismounted and, going up to the door, repeated the formula, and at once it flew open. Now Cassim had heard from within the cave the horse hooves drawing nigh and yet nigher, and he fell down to the ground in a fit of fear, never doubting that it was the clatter of the banditti who would slaughter him without fail. Howbeit, he presently took heart of grace, and at the moment when the door flew open, he rushed out, hoping to make good his escape. But the unhappy ran full tilt against the captain, who stood in front of the band, and felled him to the ground, whereupon a robber standing near his chief at once bared his brand, and with one cut clave Cassim clean in twain. With one cut, chopped him in two. Thereupon, the robbers... Don't do it. No, don't go into the printer, darling. No. Mama needs that. I need it. I do actually need it. That's why I bought it. Lived without a printer for many years, but suddenly it became very important. Yes, I even printed out some of my writings the other day. Feeling very important and proud of myself. No one cares but me, but it's all good. Anyway, where was I? Manifesting. Yes, chopped in two. Thereupon the robbers rushed into the cavern, and put back as they were before the bags of ashrafis which Cassim had heaped up at the doorway, ready for taking away, nor recked they aught of those which Ali Baba had removed. So dazed and amazed were they to discover by what means the strange man had effected an entrance. Which is pretty astonishing. All knew that it was not possible for any to drop through the skylights, so tall and steep was the rock's face, withal slippery of ascent, and also that none could enter by the portal unless he knew the magical words whereby to open it. However, they presently quartered the dead body of Cassim and hung it to the door within the cavern, 2 parts to the right jamb and as many to the left, that the sight might be a warning of approaching doom for all who dared enter the cave. It put me off, I must admit. It would put me right the hell off, seeing a man cut in two, hung on both sides of the cave. Eek. Then coming out, they closed the hoard door and rode away upon their wonted work. Now, when night fell and Cassim came not home, his wife waxed uneasy in mind, and running round to Ali Baba said, O my brother, Cassim hath not returned. Thou knowest whither he went, and saw, I fear me, some misfortune hath betided him. Woman's intuition. It's usually on point, by the way. Ali Baba also divined that a mishap had happened to prevent his return. Not the less, however, he strove to comfort his sister-in-law with words of cheer and said, O wife of my brother, Cassim haply exerciseth discretion, and, avoiding the city, cometh by a roundabout road, and will be here anon. This, I do believe, is the reason why he tarrieth. Thereupon, comforted in spirit, Cassim's wife fared homewards, and sat awaiting her husband's return. But when half the night was spent, and still he came not, she was as one distraught. She feared to cry aloud for her grief, lest haply the neighbours, hearing her, should come and learn the secret. So she wept in silence, and upbraiding herself, fell to thinking, wherefore did I disclose the secret to him, and beget envy and jealousy of Ali Baba? This be the fruit thereof, and hence the disaster that hath come down upon me. She spent the rest of the night in bitter tears, and early on the morrow tried in hottest hurry to Ali Baba, and prayed that he would go forth in quest of his brother. So he strove to console her, and straightway set out with his asses for the forest. What a strange thing. I just had this memory of my friend at a gig recently in full trance looking at me. And spirits just said to me, or showed me actually, next time he does that, get out your bell and ring it. He'd think I was nuts. But I might just do that. If you see me ringing my bell, I'm calling you back to yourself, my beloved one. It's a bit odd what's been going on actually in recent months and various gigs. Very odd indeed. It's another thing I'm trying to ride through very sanguinely. Our various abilities and magical paths and walks, and it's not threatening, but it's a bit astonishing at times. I look at them, the various people doing it, and I think, are you conscious of that, or are you trying to freak me out? I don't freak out easily because of my walk, but it's odd. It's a bit odd. But I've called him out on it before and told him that he was in full trance one time. He didn't comment. Either he didn't know what I was talking about, or he knew not to comment. But anyway, I don't know why I'm showing that right now, why that's important, but there's no harm or no foul. We love each other, we're all friends, we all protect each other. There's no malicious intent behind it, I don't believe. But, alright, they want me to ring my bell, I'll ring my fucking bell, babies. The bells I keep a bell in my key ring for clearing of energy and in honour of the fairy folk, the good folk, as they like bells. So, yes, interesting when I think about that. We're glitching in and out of we are glitching. I actually saw it in my doctor the other day too. We're glitching in and out of our 3D reality paradigm, and I blame CERN. They've interfered with our dimensions and our timelines, that even as human spirits having human experiences, we're having trouble staying grounded in our normal 3D reality. And it's a bit frightening in some ways to witness it in other people. I mean, I'm doing it too, and sometimes I'm conscious of it and sometimes I'm not, but it's a bit astonishing when I'm seeing it in my friends and my doctor and other people that I come into contact with when I go to the shops, for example. It's very, very confronting on some levels. It's like all the horror movies and sci-fi movies I ever watched have all come true all at once. And meanwhile, to stay grounded in reality, my little Charlie is nibbling the hairs on my arm. And where were we when I had that thought I decided to share with you? So she's distraught, Kasim's wife, because he still hasn't come home. She feared to cry aloud for her grief, lest haply the neighbours hearing her should come and learn the secret. So she wept in silence, and upbraiding herself, fell to thinking, wherefore did I disclose this secret to him, and beget envy and jealousy of Ali Baba? Well, should have kept stum, baby girl. This be the fruit thereof, and hence the disaster that hath come down upon me. She spent the rest of the night in bitter tears, and early on the morrow tried in hottest hurry to Ali Baba and prayed that he would go forth in quest of his brother. So he strove to console her, and straightway set out with his asses for the forest. Got sun beating in one eyeball and it's starting to grind my gears, so close the curtains again. Still a bit bright, but we'll manage. Presently reaching the rock, he wondered to see stains of blood freshly shed, and not finding his brother or the 10 mules, he forefelt a calamity from so evil a sign. He then went to the door and saying, "Open, O Sim Sim," he pushed in and saw the dead body of Kasim, 2 parts hanging to the right and the rest to the left of the entrance. Albeit he was affrighted beyond measure of affright, he wrapped the quarters in 2 cloths and laid them upon one of his asses, hiding them carefully with sticks and fuel that none might see them. Then he placed the bags of gold upon the 2 other animals, and likewise covered them most carefully. Delightful sun showers just pouring down out of nowhere. And when all was made ready, he closed the cave door with the magical words, and set him forth wending homewards with all ward and watchfulness. The asses with the load of ashrafis he made over to his wife, and bade her bury the bags with diligence. But he told her not the condition in which he had come upon his brother Kasim. Then he went with the other ass, to wit, the beast whereon was laid the corpse of the widow's house, and knocked gently at the door. Now Kasim had a slave girl, shrewd and sharp-witted, Morgiana, height. She as softly undid the bolt and admitted Ali Baba and the ass into the courtyard of the house, when he let down the body from the beast's back and said, "O Morgiana, haste thee and make thee ready to perform the rites for the burial of thy lord. I now go to tell the tidings to thy mistress, and I will quickly return to help thee in this matter." At that instant, Kasim's widow, seeing her brother-in-law, exclaimed, "Oh, Ali Baba, what news bringest thou of my spouse?" "Alas, I see grief tokens written upon thy countenance, Say quickly, what hath happened? Grief tokens written upon thy countenance. Tears? Then he recounted to her how it had fared with her husband, and how he had been slain by the robbers, and in what wise he had brought home the dead body. Ali Baba pursued, O my lady, what was to happen hath happened, but it behoveth us to keep this matter secret, for that our lives depend upon privacy. She wept with sore weeping, and made answer, It hath fared with my husband according to the fiat of fate, and now for thy safety's sake I give thee my word to keep the affair concealed. He replied, Naught can avail when Allah hath decreed. Rest thee in patience until the days of thy widowhood be accomplished, after which time I will take thee to wife, and thou shalt live in comfort and happiness. Oh, I can't think of anything worse. Hang on a minute. If any of my brother-in-laws had done the Levite thing and taken me to wife, I would have killed myself rather than have that fate. That's how revolting they all were. But anyway, oh, dear goddess, what a thought. Thankfully, my husband didn't die and I divorced him instead. Anyway, no one in modern times keeps the Levite law anymore. Thank the goddess. After which time, oh yes, I'll take thee to wife, thou shalt live in comfort and happiness. Promises, fucking promises. But it was that or you perished in the old days. There was no social welfare. You had to marry your dead husband's brother. Yucky. Anyway, and fear not lest my first spouse vex thee, or show aught of jealousy, for that she is kindly and tender of heart. Of course, if your husband's brother was, lovely and kind and good looking and sweet to you, you probably wouldn't mind all that much. I guess it depends on, the individuals and the circumstances. But anyway, judge not lest they'll be judged. Psychedelic dreaming. It's true, isn't it? I have to calm my farm sometimes. The widow, lamenting her loss noisily, as you would, cried, Be it as e'en thou please. Then Ali Baba farewelled her, weeping and wailing for her husband, and joining Morgiana, took counsel with her how to manage the burial of his brother. So after much consultation and many warnings, he left the slave girl. You're going to do a massive poo. Yes, I can tell. I can tell by the wiggling of the tail. Where were we? Just get on with it, Charlie, so I can clean it up. The sooner you do it, the sooner I can clean it up. She's like, I feel pressure now, Mama. I'm under immense pressure. Poop on command. Poop on command. She'll see the look of outrage on her face too. She's like, what? It's delightful. So after much consultation and many warnings, he left the slave girl and departed home, driving his ass before him, in front of him. His donkey, you understand. Modern parlance could be open to interpretation, couldn't it? I'll hand you your ass. It's a whole different feeling nowadays. Can you give me a kissy kissy? She says, I'll hand you my ass, Mummy. It's going to go everywhere. She's probably already done it surreptitiously. Right, little one. Little one, Mama's little one. Little feathery one. Cute little feathery birdie. Cute little feathery birdie bird. Right, where were we? As soon as Ali Baba had fared forth, oh, grumpy with me now. Oh my goodness. Morgiana went quickly to a druggist's shop, and, that she might the better dissemble with him and not make known the matter, she asked of him a drug often administered to men when diseased with dangerous distemper. He gave it, saying, Who is there in thy house that lieth so ill as to require this medicine? And said she, My master Karim is sick well nigh unto death. For many days he hath nor spoken, nor tasted aught of food, so that almost we despair of his life. Next day, Morgiana went again and asked the druggist for more of medicine and essences, such as are adhibited to the sick when at door of death, that the moribund may haply rally before the last breath. We've seen it happen, haven't we? My mother had terminal lucidity 3 weeks before her death, which was astonishing. Came out of being a drooling, unable to speak, twittering bird-like noises to having full-on conversations with the gerontologist, who jumped back from the bed in absolute shock and horror and said, This happens on rare occasions. Get your kids. You've got a few hours window period to say your goodbyes to your mother. So we did, and it was kind of spectacular in a way. Very, very odd experience, but spectacular. Someone that had a brain that looked like Swiss cheese was suddenly able to communicate lucidly. Oh. Then there was Case during his terminal last weeks. Kept reviving himself. Bright and bushy-tailed he was. Pink cheeks from some kind of fever, but fully innervated. We arrived at Redlands Hospital expecting to be there, for his last day on earth, and he was completely lucid and looking about himself, even asked us what we were doing there. So we both lied and said we were driving by and thought we'd pop in on the way to somewhere else. He looked at us, he knew we were lying too, but that's how coherent he was. But anyway, he died about, I think it was a week later. It was a horrific death. All deaths are kind of difficult to participate in. The letting go of your physical form and merging into the light. It's like birth. It can be very quick and very easy, or it can be very laborious, and there's no way of knowing which fate you're going to have, so you just have to hold hands, be present, and witness the end and the beginning of the end. Give us a kiss. Bite me. Don't bite me. Don't bite me, angry bird. Meanwhile, oh, excuse me. Oh. Meanwhile, all right, that's right. We were at Morgiana, had gone to the druggist to ask for some more goodies to give to the dying man. The man gave the potion, and she taking it sighed aloud and wept, saying, I fear me he may not have strength to drink this draught. Methinks all will be over with him ere I return to the house. Meanwhile, Ali Baba was anxiously awaiting to hear sounds of wailing and lamentation in Cassim's home, that he might at such signal hasten thither and take part in the ceremonies of the funeral. Oh, my nose is so itchy all the time. Early on the second day, yes, Charlie, Morgiana went with veiled face to one Baba Mustafa, a tailor, well shotten in years, whose craft was to make shrouds and cerecloths. And as soon as she saw him open his shop, she gave him a gold piece and said, Do thou bind a bandage over thine eyes and come along with me. I need to know what a cerecloth is. It's probably just another word for shroud, because I tend to repeat things in the story using different words, which is very fucking frustrating sometimes, but hey. Can't be right. Showing me clothes for disability people in elderly homes, blah, blah, blah. Oh, what am I doing? Why is that not working? Cloth. Meaning. Waxed cloth used for wrapping a corpse. Right. A waxed cloth used for wrapping a corpse, people of Earth. Presumably waxed so that any body fluids that drip out get held in place and don't drip all over the people carrying the body, am I right? I feel quite astonished by that thought. I've never ever in all my life heard that expression before, cerecloths. Well, there you go. Spank me ass and call me Tanya. Not that all of you understand. Don't take kindly to being spanked by anyone. Don't ever fucking try that, by the way. It'll go bad for you. Joking around with my fan, whacking someone for a joke, or a joke spanking, like just a bit of mischief, it's fine, but anyone tries to lather my behind will assuredly die in one form or another. Just saying. Anyway, where were we? I had quite enough brutality growing up. I don't want it from my so-called lovers, friends or compatriots or family. Yuck. Anyway, where were we? Shrouds and cerecloth, so they weren't quite the same thing, but kind of related. And as soon as she saw him open his shop, she gave him a gold piece and said, Do thou bind a bandage over thine eyes and come along with me. Mustafa made as though he would not go, whereat Morgiana placed a second gold coin in his palm and entreated him to accompany her. The tailor presently consented for greed of gain, so tying a kerchief tightly over his eyes, she led him by the hand to the house wherein lay the dead body of her master. Just seeing how many pages we've got. We may need to maybe not. Trying to decide if I break it up into another video. Then taking off the bandage in the darkened room, she bade him sew together the quarters of the corpse, limb to its limb, and casting a cloth upon the body, said to the tailor, Make haste and sew a shroud according to the size of this dead man, and I will give thee therefore yet another ducat. Baba Mustafa quickly made the cerecloth of fitting length and breadth, and Morgiana paid him the promised ashrafi, then once more bandaging his eyes, led him back to the place whence she had brought him. After this she returned hurriedly home, and with the help of Ali Baba washed the body in warm water, and donning the shroud, lay the corpse upon a clean place ready for burial. This done, Morgiana went to the mosque and gave notice to an imam that a funeral was awaiting the mourners at a certain household, and prayed that he would come to read the prayers for the dead, and the imam went back with her. Then 4 neighbours took up the bier and bore it on their shoulders and fared forth with the imam, and others who were wont to give assistance at such obsequies. After the funeral, I shouldn't laugh. I have an urge to laugh, but it's not funny. There are people that kind of really get off on fucking funerals, and, you know, they're like fucking psychic vampires par excellence, and some of them, you know, make their living by it. I considered becoming a funeral director at one time. I don't know if I could handle all the embalming and stench and scraping people up from car accidents. No, my nervous system couldn't do it. But, however, there are people that kind of relish in that kind of thing. It's a bit odd. After the funeral prayers were ended, 4 other men carried off the coffin, and Morgiana walked before it bare of head, striking her breast, and weeping and wailing with exceeding loud lament, whilst Ali Baba and the neighbours came behind. In such order they entered the cemetery and buried him. Why is it so hot in here when I have the air conditioning on 23? Turn it down a bit. Turn it down. Turn it down. Oh, it's off. Turn it off. No, you mustn't turn it off. Holy schmackaroonies. Phew! Mama T, baby girl. Right. After the funeral prayers were ended, 4 other men carried off the coffin, and Morgiana walked before it bare of head, striking her breast and weeping and wailing with exceeding loud lament, whilst Ali Baba and the neighbours came behind. Yes, they did. We should go for a walkie, shouldn't we? I'm too tired now. In such order they entered the cemetery and buried him. Then, leaving him to Munkar and Nakir, the questioners of the dead, all wended their ways. Presently, the women of the quarter, according to the custom of the city, gathered together in the house of mourning, and sat an hour with Kasim's widow, comforting and condoling, presently leaving her somewhat resigned and cheered. Ali Baba stayed 40 days at home in ceremonial lamentation for the loss of his brother, so none within the town save himself and his wife, Kasim's widow, and Morgiana knew aught about the secret that had been hacked to pieces by vengeful thieves. And when the 40 days of mourning were ended, I love you. Yes, I do. Ali Baba removed to his own quarters all the property belonging to the deceased. Yes, I know. And openly married the widow, Then he appointed his nephew, his brother's eldest son, who had lived a long time with a wealthy merchant and was perfect of knowledge in all matters of trade, such as selling and buying, to take charge of the defunct's shop and to carry on the business. No biting, no. Be gentle with your mama. I'm gentle with you. Yes, I'm very gentle with you, crazy bird. It so chanced one day when the robbers, as was their wont, came to the treasure cave, that they marvelled exceedingly to find nor sign nor trace of Cassim's body, whilst they observed that much of gold had been carried off. I'd be very annoyed if I were them, wouldn't you? Quoth the captain, how it behoveth us to make inquiry in this matter. Not how, but now. Else shall we suffer much of loss, and this our treasure which we and our forefathers have amassed during the course of many years will little by little be wasted and spoiled. Here too all assented, and with single mind agreed that he whom they had slain had knowledge of the magical words whereby the door was made to open, moreover that someone beside him had cognizance the spell, and had carried off the body and also much of gold, wherefore they needs must make diligent research and find out who the man ever might be. They then took counsel and determined that one amongst them, who should be sagacious and deft of wit, must don the dress of some merchant from foreign parts. Then, repairing to the city, he must go about from quarter to quarter and from street to street, and learn if any townsman had lately died, and if so, where he wanted to dwell, that with this clue they might be enabled to find the wight they sought. Hereat said one of the robbers, grant me leave that I fare and find out such tidings in the town, and bring me word anon, and if I fail of my purpose, I hold my life and forfeit. Accordingly, that bandit, after disguising himself by dress, pushed at night into the town, and next morning early he repaired to the market square, and saw that none of the shops had yet been opened, save only that of Baba Mustafa the tailor, who thread and needle in hand sat upon his working stool. The thief bade him good day, and said, 'Tis yet dark, how canst thou see to sew? Said the tailor, I perceive thou art a stranger. Despite my years, my eyesight is so keen that only yesterday I sewed together a dead body while sitting in a room quite darkened. Quoth the bandit thereupon to himself, I shall get somewhat of my want from this snip. And to secure a further clue, he asked, meseemeth thou wouldst jest with me, and thou meanest that a cerecloth for a corpse was stitched by thee, and that thy business is to sew shrouds. Answered the tailor, why is a van with refrigerated transport parked in front of my house? It won't be my parcel since it's not refrigerated. someone else having a delivery. Odd, isn't it, Charlie? It's all a bit odd. But it's not my business. I'm just observing what's happening in the street while I sit here. It doesn't matter what they're doing, the neighbours. It really doesn't. As long as you scratch my head, Melody, the whole world could go to blazes and I wouldn't care. As long as I get my cuddles right now, so I can be a happy, fulfilled birdie, living my best life. I know. Answered the tailor, It mattereth not to thee, question me no more questions. Thereupon the robber placed an ashrafi in his hand and continued, I desire not to discover aught thou hidest, albeit my breast, like every honest man's, is the grave of secrets. And this only would I learn of thee, in what house didst thou do that job? Canst thou direct me thither, or thyself conduct me thereto? The tailor took the gold with greed and cried, I have not seen with my own eyes the way to that house. A certain bondswoman led me to a place which I know right well, and there she bandaged my eyes and guided me to some tenement, and lastly carried me into a darkened room where lay the dead body dismembered. Then she unbound the kerchief and bade me sew together first the corpse and then the shroud, which, having done, she again blindfolded me and led me back to the stead whence she had brought me and left me there. Thou seest then I am not able to tell thee where thou shalt find the house. Quoth the robber, albeit thou knowest not the dwelling whereof thou speakest, still canst thou take me to the place where thou west blindfolded? Then I will bind a kerchief over thine eyes, and lead thee as thou west led. On this wise, perchance, thou mayst hit upon the sight, and thou wilt do this favour by me. See here, another golden ducat is thine. Thereupon the bandit Charlie slipped a second ashrafi into the tailor's palm, and Baba Mustafa thrust it with the first into his pocket. Yes, I know. Then, leaving his shop as it was, he walked to the place where Morgiana had tied the kerchief around his eyes, and with him went the robber, who, after binding on the bandage, led him by the hand. Baba Mustafa, who was clever and keen-witted, presently striking the street whereby he had fared with the handmaid, walked on counting, step by step. Then halting suddenly, he said, Thus far I came with her. And the twain, the two of them, stopped in front of Kasim's house, wherein now dwelt his brother, Ali Baba. The robber, I'm trying to work out why he moved into his dead brother's house. He's married his wife, but did he have to move into the house as well? Maybe it was a better property. Who knows? The robber then made marks with white chalk upon the door to the end that he might readily find it at some future time, and removing the bandage from the tailor's eyes, said, O Baba Mustafa, I thank thee for this favour, and Almighty Allah guerdon thee for thy goodness. Tell me now, I pray thee, who dwelleth in yonder house? Quoth he, In very sooth, I wot not, for I have little knowledge concerning this quarter of the city. And the bandit, understanding that he could find no further clue from the tailor, dismissed him to his shop with abundant thanks, and hastened back to the tryst place in the jungle where the band awaited his coming. Oh, Charlie. Not long after, it so fortuned that Morgiana, going out upon some errand, marvelled exceedingly at seeing the chalk marks showing white in the door. She stood a while, deep in thought, and presently divined that some enemy had made the signs that he might recognise the house and place some slight upon her lord. She therefore chalked the doors of her neighbours in like manner, and kept the matter secret, never entrusting it or to mistress or to master. You thirsty, Charlie? Yeah. There you go. Have a drink it. A drink. Meanwhile, the robber told his comrades his tale of adventure and how she's eating the mushed up sultana that she threw in the water. Well, it's intelligent, isn't it? Softens it. Not so silly after all. So where were we? Meanwhile, the robber told his comrades his tale of adventure and how he had found the clue. So the captain, and with him all the band, went one after other by different ways till they entered the city, and he, who had placed the mark on Ali Baba's door, accompanied the chief to point out the place. He conducted him straightway to the house, and strewing the sign exclaimed, Here dwelleth he of whom we are in search. Here's a picture of the blindfolded tailor and the robber marking the doors. But when the captain looked around him, he saw that all the other dwellings bore chalk marks after like fashion, and he wondered, saying, By what manner of means knowest thou which house of all these houses that bear similar signs is that whereof thou spakest? Hereat the robber guide was confounded beyond measure of confusion, and could make no answer. Then with an oath he cried, I did assuredly set a sign upon a door, but I know not whence came all the marks upon the other entrances, nor can I say for a surety that it was, which it was I chalked. Thereupon the captain returned to the marketplace and said to his men, We have toiled and laboured in vain, nor have we found the house we went forth to seek. Return we now to the forest our rendezvous, I also will fare thither. Then all trooped off and assembled together within the treasure cave. And when the robbers had all met, the captain judged him worthy of punishment who had spoken falsely and led them through the city to no purpose. Just checking something here, just bear with me. Multitasking as I do, which means I'm drifting because I'm bloody exhausted. Right. So he imprisoned him in presence of them all, and then said he, To him amongst you will I show special favour, who shall go to town and bring me intelligence, whereby we may lay hands upon the plunderer of our property. Hereat another of the company came forward and said, I am ready to go and inquire into the case, and 'tis I who will bring thee to thy wish. The captain, after giving him presents and promises, dispatched him upon his errand, and by the decree of destiny, which none may gainsay, the second robber went first to the house of Baba Mustafa the tailor, as had done the thief who had foregone him. In like manner he also persuaded the snip with gifts of golden coin that he be led hoodwinked, and thus too he was guided to Ali Baba's door. Here, noting the work of his predecessor, he affixed to the jamb a mark with red chalk, the better to distinguish it from the others whereon still showed the white. Then tried he back in stealth to his company. But Morgiana, on her part, also descried the red sign on the entrance, and with subtle forethought marked all the others after the same fashion, nor told she any what she had done. Clever girl. I like her. Smart cookie. Meanwhile, the bandit rejoined his band and vauntingly said, Oh, our captain, I have found the house, and thereon put a mark whereby I shall distinguish it clearly from all its neighbours. The captain dispatched another of his men to the city, and he found the place, but as aforetime, when the troop repaired thither, they saw each and every house marked with signs of red chalk. So they returned disappointed, and the captain, waxing displeased exceedingly and distraught, clapped also the spy into jail. Then said the chief to himself, 2 men have failed in their endeavour and have met their rightful meed of punishment, and I trow that none other of my band will essay to follow up their research. So I myself will go and find the house of this Wight, Wight. Accordingly, he fared along, and aided by the tailor Baba Mustafa, who had gained much gain of golden pieces in this matter, he hit upon the house of Ali Baba, and here he made no outward show or sign, but marked it on the tablet of his heart, and impressed the picture upon the page of his memory. Then, returning to the jungle, he said to his men, I have full cognizance of the place, and have lined it clearly in my mind. So now there will be no difficulty in finding it. Go forth straightways, and buy me, and bring hither 19 mules, together with 1 large leathern jar of mustard oil, and 37 vessels of the same kind. So I just picked out, you're not chewing that box, are you? No, she's eating her sultana. Pardon me. Of the same kind, clean, empty. 37 leather jars that are clean and empty. Never heard of a leather jar. Wouldn't it leak through the moisture? Odd. But anyway. Unless they mean a jar like I had from my mother from Germany. It's very, very ancient actually. Still from her, I think it's still from her childhood in Germany. Well, at least it was in my childhood, it was in her possession during my childhood, but I think it's one of the few things she brought from Germany when she migrated to New Zealand in 1956. But it's leather, but it's covering a glass bottle. I'll show you there, you can see the glass. It's very sweet, isn't it? But it's so old that its strap's broken, and this is coming off too. I might have to let it go. Let it go, let it go. But it's slowly falling apart, but it's actually quite lovely. I could probably glue that back down though, without any trouble. But this I can't fix, I've tried, and so it just flops around. But anyway, that's what it looks like. And just lost one of the things there, but I've got it somewhere. I can glue that back on. I preserve things. I'm an archivist and a preserver of things. No, don't walk on the laptop because it'll do flippity gibbets if you walk on it. I've got to find my place back again. Right, here we were. Without me and the two locked up in jail, ye number 37 souls. So I will stow you away, armed and accoutred, each within his jar, and will load 2 upon each mule. And upon the 19th mule there shall be a man in an empty jar on one side, and on the other the jar full of oil. I, for my part, in guise of an oil merchant, will drive the mules into the town, arriving at the house by night, and will ask permission of its master to tarry there until morning. After this, we shall seek occasion during the dark hours to rise up and fall upon him and slay him. Furthermore, the captain spake, saying, When we have made an end of him, we shall recover the gold and treasure whereof he robbed us, and bring it back upon the mules. This counsel pleased the robbers, who went forthwith and purchased mules and huge leathern jars, and did as the captain had bidden them. And after a delay of 3 days, shortly before nightfall they arose, and, over-smearing all the jars with oil of mustard, each hid him inside an empty vessel. All mustard. I'm allergic to mustard, unfortunately. The chief then disguised himself in trader's gear and placed the jars upon the 19 mules, to which the 37 vessels, in each of which lay a robber armed and accoutred, and the one that was full of oil. This done, he drove the beasts before him, and presently he reached Ali Baba's place at nightfall, when it chanced that the housemaster was strolling after supper to and fro in front of his home. What, Charlie? The captain saluted him with a salam and said, I come from such and such a village with oil, and oft times have I been here a-selling oil, but now, to my grief, I have arrived too late, and I am sore troubled and perplexed as to where I shall spend the night. And thou have pity on me. I pray thee grant that I tarry here in thy courtyard, and ease the mules by taking down the jars and giving the beasts somewhat of fodder. But, albeit Ali Baba had heard the captain's voice when perched upon the tree, and had seen him enter the cave, yet by reason of the disguise he knew him not for the leader of the thieves, and granted his request with hearty welcome, and gave him full licence to halt there for the night. He then pointed out an empty shed wherein to tether the mules, and bade one of the slave boys go fetch grain and water. He also gave orders to the slave girl Morgiana, saying, "A guest hath come hither and tarrieth here tonight. Do thou busy thyself with all speed about his supper, and make ready the guest bed for him." Presently, when the captain had let down all the jars, and had fed and watered his mules, Ali Baba received him with all courtesy and kindness, and summoning Morgiana, said in his presence, "See thou fail not in search of this our stranger, nor suffer him to lack for aught. Tomorrow early I would fare to the hammam and bathe. So do thou give my slave boy Abdullah a suit of clean white clothes, which I may put on after washing. Moreover, make thee ready a somewhat of broth overnight, that I may drink it after my return home." Replied she, "I will have all in readiness as thou hast bidden." So Ali Baba retired to his rest. I'll be resting after this, babies. And the captain, having supped, repaired to the shed and saw that all the mules had their food and drink for the night. The captain, after seeing to the mules and the jars, which Ali Baba and his household held to be full of oil, finding utter privacy, whispered to his men who were in ambush, "This night at midnight, when ye hear my voice, do you quickly open with your sharp knives the leathern jars from top to bottom, and issue forth without delay." Then, passing through the kitchen, he reached the chamber wherein a bed had been dispread for him, Morgiana showing the way with a lamp. Quoth she, "And thou need aught beside, I pray thee command this thy slave, who is ever ready to obey thy say." He made answer, "Naught else need I." Then, putting out the light, he lay him down on the bed to sleep a while, ere the time came to rouse his men and finish off the work. Meanwhile, Morgiana did as her master had bidden her. She first took out a suit of clean white clothes and made it over to Abdullah, who had not yet gone to rest. Then she placed the pipkin upon the hearth to boil the broth, and blew the fire till it burnt briskly. After a short delay, she needs must see and the broth be boiling, but by that time all the lamps had gone out, and she found that the oil was spent, and that nowhere could she get a light. The slave boy Abdullah observed that she was troubled and perplexed hereat, and quoth he to her, "Why make so much ado? In yonder shed are many jars of oil. Go now and take as much soever as thou listeth." Morgiana gave thanks to him for his suggestion, and Abdullah, who was lying at his ease in the hall, went off to sleep, so that he might wake betimes and serve Ali Baba in the bath. What? Oh, never mind. So So the handmaiden rose, and with oil can in hand walked to the shed where stood the leathern jars all ranged in rows. Now, as she drew nigh unto one of the vessels, the thief who was hidden therein, hearing the tread of footsteps, bethought him that it was of his captain whose summons he awaited. So he whispered, "Is it now time for us to sally forth?" Morgiana started back affrighted at the sound of human accents, but inasmuch as she was bold and ready of wit, she replied, "The time is not yet come," and said to herself, "These jars are not full of oil, and herein I perceive a manner of mystery. Haply the oil merchant hatcheth some treacherous plot against my Lord. So Allah, the compassionating, the compassionate, protect us from his snares." Wherefore she answered in a voice made like to the captain's, "Not yet, the time is not come." Then she went to the next jar and returned the same reply to him who was within, and so on to all the vessels one by one. Then said she in herself, "Lord, to the Lord, my master took this fellow in, believing him to be an oil merchant. But lo, he hath admitted a band of robbers, who only await the signal to fall upon him and plunder the place and do him die." Then passed she on to the furthest jar, and finding it brimming with oil, filled her can, and, returning to the kitchen, trimmed the lamp and lit the wicks. Then, bringing forth a large cauldron, she set it upon the fire, and, filling it with oil from out the jar, heaped wood upon the hearth, and fanned it to a fierce flame, the readier to boil its contents. When this was done, she bowed it out in potfuls, and poured it seething hot into the leathern vessels, one by one, while the thieves, unable to escape, were scalded to death, and every jar contained a corpse. Thus did this slave girl, by her subtle wit, make a clean end of all noiselessly and unknown even to the dwellers in the house. How did she do it noiselessly though? Because if you've been burnt to death, trust me, you scream like a motherfucker. But it's a fairy tale. Now when she had satisfied herself that each and every of the men had been slain, she went back to the kitchen, and shutting to the door sat brewing Ali Baba's broth. Scarce had an hour passed before the captain woke from sleep, and, opening wide his window, saw that all was dark and silent. So he clapped his hands as a signal for his men to come forth, but not a sound was heard in return. To show you, here she is, pouring the oil, thereby killing each of the robbers in turn, apparently very silently. After a while, he clapped again and called aloud, but got no answer. Sorry, I can be a bit pedantic like that. Also a bit dark. And when he cried out a third time without reply, he was perplexed, and went out to the shed wherein stood the jars. He thought to himself, "Perchance all have fallen asleep, whenas the time for action is now at hand, so I must e'en awaken them without stay or delay." Then approaching the nearest jar, he was startled by a smell of oil and seething flesh, and touching it outside he felt it reeking hot. Then going to the others, one by one, he found all in like condition. Hereat he knew for a surety the fate which had betided his band, and, fearing for his own safety, he clomb on to the wall, and thence dropping on into a garden, made his escape in high dudgeon and sore disappointment. Morgiana awaited a while to see the captain return from the shed, but he came not, whereat she knew that he had scaled the wall and had taken to flight. For that the street door was double locked, and the thieves being all disposed of on this wise, Morgiana laid her down to sleep in perfect solace and ease of mind. When 2 hours of darkness yet remained, Ali Baba awoke and went to the hammam, knowing naught of the night adventure, for the gallant slave girl had not aroused him, meaning woken him up. Just saying. Nor indeed had she deemed such action expedient, because had she sought an opportunity of reporting to him her plan, she might haply have lost her chance and spoiled the project. The sun was high over the horizon when Ali Baba walked back from the baths, and he marvelled exceedingly to see the jars still standing under the shed, and said, How cometh it that he, the oil merchant, my guest, hath not carried to the market his mules and jars of oil? Ali Baba presently asked Morgiana what had befallen the oil merchant his guest whom he had placed under her charge, and she answered, Allah Almighty, vouchsafe to thee 60 years and 10 of safety. 60 years, that's 60 plus 10 is 70. Right. I will tell thee all in privacy of this merchant. So Ali Baba went apart with his slave girl, who, taking him outside the house, first locked the court door, then showing him a jar, she said, Prithee look into this, and see if within there be oil or aught else. Thereupon, peering inside it, he perceived a man, at which sight he cried aloud, and fain would have fled in his fright. Quoth Morgiana, Fear him not, this man hath no longer the force to work thee harm, he lieth dead, and stone dead. Hearing such words of comfort and reassurance, Ali Baba asked, O Morgiana, what evils have we escaped, and by what means hath this wretch become the quarry of fate? She answered, Alhamdulillah, praise be to Almighty Allah. I will inform thee fully of the case, but hush thee, speak not aloud, lest haply the neighbours learn the secret and it end in our confusion. Look now into all the jars, one by one, from first to last. She's a happy little murderer, isn't she? Triumphant and victorious. Well, it was justified, I guess. Kind of justified. She got them before they got all her, masters and fellow servants, etc., etc. So Ali Baba examined them severally and found in each a man fully armed and accoutred, and all lay scalded to death, which is a dreadful way to die, by the way. Hereat, speechless for sheer amazement, he stared at the jars, but presently recovering himself, he asked, And where is he, the oil merchant? Answered she, Of whom also I will inform thee. The villain was no trader, but a traitorous assassin, whose honeyed words would have ensnared thee to thy doom. And now I will tell thee what he was and what hath happened, but meanwhile thou art fresh from the hammam, and thou shouldst first drink somewhat of this broth for thy stomach's and thy health's sake. So Ali Baba went within, and Morgiana served up the mess, after which quoth her master, I fain would hear this wondrous story. Prithee tell it to me, and set my heart at ease. Hereat the handmaid fell to relating whatso had betided in these words. O my master, when thou badest me boil the broth, and retires to rest, thy slave, in obedience to thy command, took out a suit of clean white clothes and gave it to the boy Abdullah, then kindled the fire and set on the broth. As soon as it was ready, I had need to light a lamp, so that I might see to skim it, but all the oil was spent, and learning this I told my want to the slave boy Abdullah, who advised me to draw somewhat from the jars which stood under the shed. Accordingly I took a can and went to the first vessel, when suddenly I heard a voice within whisper with all caution, "Is it now time for us to sally forth?" I was amazed thereat and judged that the pretended merchant had laid some plot to slay thee. So I replied, "The time is not yet come." Then I went to the second jar and heard another voice, to which I made the like answer, and so on with all of them. I now was certified that these men awaited only some signal from their chief, whom thou didst take to guest within thy walls, supposing him to be a merchant in oil, and that after thou receivedst him hospitably, the miscreant had brought these men to murder thee, and to plunder thy good and spoil thy house. But I gave him no opportunity to win his wish. The last jar I found full of oil, and taking somewhat therefrom, I lit the lamp. Then, putting a large cauldron upon the fire, I filled it up with oil, which I brought from the jar, and made a fierce blaze under it. And when the contents were seething hot, I took out sundry cans full, with intent to scald them all to death, and, going to each jar in due order, I poured within them, one by one, boiling oil. On this wise, having destroyed them utterly, I returned to the kitchen, and having extinguished the lamps, stood by the window, watching what might happen and how that false merchant would act next. Not long after I had taken my station, the robber captain awoke, and oft times signalled to his thieves. Then, getting no reply, he came downstairs and went out to the jars, and finding that all his men were slain, he fled through the darkness, I know not whither. So, that means where. So when he had clean disappeared, I was assured that, the door being double locked, he had scaled the wall and dropped into the garden and made his escape. Then, with my heart at rest, I slept, having just murdered 37 men, without any qualms at all, silently. It's quite an achievement, isn't it? And Morgiana, after telling her story to her master, presently added, "This is the whole truth I have related to thee. For some days indeed have I had inkling of such matter, but withheld it from thee, deeming it inexpedient to risk the chance of its meeting the neighbours' ears. Now, however, there is no help but to tell thee thereof. One day as I came to the house door, I espied thereon a white chalk mark, and on the next day a red sign beside the white. I knew not the intent wherewith the marks were made, nevertheless I set others upon the entrances of sundry neighbours, judging that some enemy judging that some enemy had done this deed whereby to encompass my master's destruction. Therefore I made the marks on all the other doors in such perfect conformity with those I found that it would be hard to distinguish amongst them. Clever girl. Judge now and see if these signs and all this villainy be not the work of the bandits of the forest, who marked our house that on such wise they might know it again. Of these 40 thieves there yet remain 2 others concerning whose case I know naught, so beware of them, but chiefly of the 3rd remaining robber, their captain, who fled hence alive. Take good heed, and be thou cautious of him, for, shouldst thou fall into his hands, he will in no wise spare thee, but will surely murder thee. I will do all that lieth in me to save from hurt and harm thy life and property, nor shall thy slave be found wanting in any service to my lord. Oh, but Jesus. Battery running low now. It's always something, isn't it? This psychedelic dreamers world. Right, let me just plug us in, my darlings. Seemed to last a rather long time this time. Oh. Right, are we still filming? Yes. Hearing these words, Ali Baba rejoiced with exceeding joyance and said to her, I am well pleased with thee for this thy conduct. And, say me, what wouldst thou have me do in thy behalf? I shall not fail to remember thy brave deed so long as breath in me remaineth. Quoth she, It behoveth us before all things forthright to bury these bodies in the ground, that so the secret be not known to any one. 37 bodies. That's a lot, man. I better go see my daughter's former lover, Ben, in Berkshire, or wherever that Burke was living. Anyway, I'm not sure, I can't remember now. But he had plenty of graves he prepared earlier. Let's see. Psycho. Hereupon, Ali Baba took with him his slave boy Abdullah into the garden, and there under a tree they dug for the corpses of the thieves a deep pit in size proportionate to its contents. Let's consider it. Not many floaters, do we? And they dragged the bodies, having carried off their weapons, to the fosse or fosse, and threw them in. Then, covering up the remains of the 37 robbers, they made the ground appear level and clean, as it wont to be. They also hid the leathern jars and the gear and arms, and presently Ali Baba sent the mules by 1s and 2s to the bazaar and sold them all with the able aid of his slave boy Abdullah. Thus the matter was hushed up, nor did it reach the ears of any. Ali Baba ceased not to be ill at ease lest haply the captain or the surviving 2 robbers should wreak their vengeance on his head. He kept himself private with all caution, and took heed that none learn a word of what happened, or of the wealth which he had carried off from the bandits' cave. Meanwhile, the captain of the thieves, having escaped with his life, fled to the forest in hot wrath and sore irk of mind, and his senses were scattered, and the colour of his visage vanished like ascending smoke, became rather grey in the face. Then he thought the matter over again and again, and at last he firmly resolved that he needs must take the life of Ali Baba, else he would lose all the treasure which his enemy, by knowledge of the magical words, would take away and turn to his own use. Furthermore, he determined that he would undertake the business single-handed, and that, after getting rid of Ali Baba, he would gather together another band of banditti and would pursue his career of brigandage, as indeed his forebears had done for many generations. So he lay down to rest that night, and rising early in the morning, donned a dress of suitable appearance. Then, going to the city, alighted at a caravanserai, thinking to himself, doubtless the murder of so many men hath reached the wali's ears, and Ali Baba hath been seized and brought to justice, and his house is levelled, and his good is confiscated. The townsfolk must surely have heard tidings of these matters. So he straightway asked of the keeper of the Khan, "What strange things have happened in the city during the last few days?" And the other told him all that he had seen and heard, but the captain could not learn a whit of that which most concerned him. Hereby he understood that Ali Baba was ware and wise, and that he had not only carried away such store of treasure, but he had also destroyed so many lives, and withal had come off scatheless. Furthermore, no, you're not putting sultana in my bottle of water as well. I needed that, by the gods. Hoo-ha. It's just water, but by the gods I needed that. Furthermore, that he himself must needs have all his wits alert, not to fall into the hands of his foe and perish. With this resolve, the captain hired a shop in the bazaar, whither he bore whole bales of the finest stuffs and goodly merchandise from his forest treasure house. And presently he took his seat within the store and fell to doing merchant's business. By chance his place fronted the booth of the defunct Qasim, where his son, Ali Baba's nephew, now traded, and the captain, who called himself Khwaja Hassan, soon formed acquaintance and friendship with the shopkeepers around about him and treated all with profuse civilities, but he was especially gracious and cordial to the son of Qasim, a handsome youth and well-dressed, and oft times he would sit and chat with him for a long while. A few days after it chanced that Ali Baba, as he was sometimes wont to do, came to see his nephew, whom he found sitting in his shop. The captain saw and recognized him at sight, and one morning he asked the young man, saying, "Prithee, tell me, who is he that ever and anon cometh to thee at thy place of sale?" Whereto the youth made answer, "He is my uncle, the brother of my father." Whereupon the captain showed him yet greater favour and affection, the better to deceive him for his own devices, and gave him presents, and made him sit at meat with him, and fed him with the daintiest of dishes. Presently Ali Baba's nephew bethought him it was only right and proper that he also should invite the merchant to supper. But whereas his own house was small, he was straitened for room and could not make a show of splendour, as did Khwaja Hassan. He took counsel with his uncle on the matter. Ali Baba replied to his nephew, "Thou sayest well, it behoveth thee to entreat thy friend in fairest fashion, even as he hath entreated thee. On the morrow, which is Friday, shut thy shop as do all merchants of repute. Then, after the early meal, take Khwaja Hassan to smell the air, and as thou walkest, lead him hither unawares. Meanwhile, I will give orders that Morgiana shall make ready for his coming the best of viands and all necessaries for a feast." Who doesn't love a feast? "Trouble not thyself on any wise, but leave the matter in my hands." Do a feast right now. Accordingly, on the next day, to wit, Friday, the nephew of Ali Baba took Khwaja Hassan, Charlie, to walk about the garden, and as they were returning he led him by the street wherein his uncle dwelt. When they came to the house, the youth stopped at the door and knocking said, "O my lord, this is my second home. My uncle hath heard much of thee, and of thy goodness me wards and desireth with exceeding desire to see thee, Charlie, to see thee. Seest thou me? I see you, shaking that ass. So, shouldst thou consent to enter and visit him, I shall be truly glad and thankful to thee." Albeit Khwaja Hassan rejoined in heart that he had thus found means whereby he might have access to his enemy's house and household, and although he hoped soon to attain his end by treachery, yet he hesitated to enter in, and stood to make his excuses. "Stop plucking the feathers, you naughty little varmint, you. And did a messy shirt. Told you that was coming. It was inevitable, was it not? Right on my water bottle though. Like, really, Charlie? Really? Really, Charlie? Wherever you be, let your rainbow lorikeet poop run free." By the gods. But I love you. Yes, I know. She loves me too. Shitty pooper that she is. Right, where were we? Although he hoped soon to attain his end by treachery, yet he hesitated to enter in and stood to make his excuses and walk away. Right, back on the road. But when the door was opened by the slave porter, I'm tired. I'm so fucking tired. My eyes are almost square in my head. The story is reaching completion soon. Ali Baba's nephew seized his companion's hand and after abundant persuasion led him in, whereat he entered with great show of cheerfulness, as though much pleased and honoured. The housemaster received him with all favour and worship, and asked him of his welfare, and said to him, Oh, my lord. You're getting bolder and bolder, Charlie. You really need to stop this tricholotomania, or however it's pronounced. Yes. Oh, my lord, I am obliged and thankful to thee for that thou hast strewn favour to the son of my brother, and I perceive that thou regardest him with an affection even fonder than my own. Oh. Khwaja Hassan replied with pleasant words and said, Thy nephew vastly taketh my fancy, and in him I am well pleased, for that although young in years, yet he hath been endued by Allah with much of wisdom. Thus they twain, the two of them, conversed with friendly conversation. Yes, and presently the guest rose to depart, and said, O my lord. No, they didn't say the kissy kissy part. O my lord, thy slave must now farewell thee, but on some future day, inshallah, he will again wait upon thee. Yes, Charlie. Ali Baba, however, would not let him leave, and asked, Whither wendest thou, O my friend? I would invite thee to my table, and I pray thee sit at meat with us, and after hie thee home in peace. Perchance the dishes are not as delicate as those whereof thou art wont to eat. Still deign grant me this request, I pray thee, and refresh thyself with my victual. Oh, isn't he sweet? Quoth Khwaja Hassan, O my lord, I am beholden to thee for thy gracious invitation, and with pleasure would I sit at meat with thee. But for a special reason must I needs excuse myself, suffer me therefore to depart, for I may not tarry longer, nor accept thy gracious offer. Hereto the host made reply, I pray thee, O my lord, tell me what may be the reason so urgent and weighty. And Khwaja Hassan, today's Friday, isn't it? Just wondering why my parcel's taking so long. It's only been a few days, and it's post-Christmas, and everyone's tired. Can't with farm time errands. Anyway, where was I? And Khwaja Hassan answered, The cause is this. I must not, by order of the physician who cured me lately of my complaint, eat aught of food prepared with salt. Quoth Ali Baba, And this be all, deprive me not, I pray thee, of the honour thy company will confer upon me. As the meats are not yet cooked, I will forbid the kitchener to make use of any salt. Tarry here a while, and I will return anon to thee. So say, Ali Baba went into Morgiana and bade her not put salt into any one of the dishes, and she, while busied with her cooking, fell to marvelling greatly at such order, and asked her master, Who is he that eateth meat wherein is no salt? He answered, What to thee mattereth it who he may be? Only do thou my bidding. She rejoined, 'Tis well, all shall be as thou wishest. But in mind she wondered at the man who made such strange request, and desired, What are you doing, Charlie? And desired much to look upon him. Wherefore, do you want water? Is that what you're losing your shit about? Right, here. Let's have some water for the birdie. Is the birdie thirsty? You're getting very fractious. Fractious, yes, she's thirsty. Thirsty, fractious birdie. Right, Mum is about to get fractious herself soon by all the gods. Oh. But in mind she wondered the man who made such strange request and desired much to look upon him. Wherefore, when all the meats were ready for serving up, she helped the slave boy. Ow, mother, why do you do that? Abdullah, to spread the table. Are you quite done? And set on the meal. And no sooner did she see, it's all over my book, very naughty child. And no sooner did she see Khwaja Hassan than she knew who he was, albeit he had disguised himself in the dress of a stranger merchant. Furthermore, when she eyed him attentively, she espied a dagger hidden under his robe. So ho, quoth she to herself, this is the cause why the villain eateth not of salt, for that he seeketh an opportunity to slay my master, whose mortal enemy he is. Howbeit I will be beforehand with him, and dispatch him ere he find a chance to harm my lord. Well, she's a loyal little slave, isn't she? I suspect she's a bit in love with him. Otherwise, why would you put yourself in constant danger like that? Just anyone. Just say. Morgia. Oh, you have to laugh. Morgiana, having spread a white cloth upon the table and served up the meal, went back to the kitchen. Thought it was a delivery van, but no. I'm really wanting those tools. But they'll come. Maybe one day. But, sometimes when the tools arrive, the muse is gone, and you've got to ride that wave, you know what I mean? It's like, you've got to ride, when the muse is there, that's when you make the jewellery. You've got to be in the mood and ride that wave. If the tools don't arrive when you're really riding that wave, they can sit there for fucking weeks or months and I don't give a fuck. And nothing happens. It's been like that in recent months actually, 3 months, 4 months. Didn't want to do anything. So there you go. Anyway, Morgiana, having spread a white cloth upon the table and served up the meal, went back to the kitchen and thought out her plot against the robber captain. Now when Ali Baba and Khwaja Hassan had eaten in sufficiency, the slave boy Abdullah brought Morgiana word to serve the dessert, and she cleared the table and set on fruit, fresh and dried in salvers. Then she placed by the side of Ali Baba a small tripod for 3 cups with a flagon of wine. I feel like almost it's a code word at the moment. Remember I said in another video today something about dried fruit? And I said, oh, well, we're all getting old together, like over-ripened and aging, becoming more mature and even more delicious as we age, like dried fruit. It's like it's a code word because I keep seeing this reminder about dried fruit. I wonder what it means. Does it mean anything? Is it just a synchronicity? Who knows? Then she placed by the side of Ali Baba a small tripod for 3 cups with a flagon of wine, and lastly she went off with the slave boy Abdullah into another room as though she would herself eat supper. Then Khwaja Hassan, that is, the captain of the robbers, perceiving that the coast was clear, exulted mightily, saying to himself, the time hath come for me to take full vengeance. With one thrust of my dagger I will dispatch this fellow, then escape across the garden and wend my ways. His nephew will not adventure to stay my hand, For an he do but move a finger or toe, with that intent another stab will settle his earthly account. Just picking up vibes, so I'm just taking note of the time. This morning I was picking up vibes from about 10 a.m. till 10:41, and I was accurate. Just a little game I'm playing by myself, that my telepathy is getting very honed, people. But only with, people I'm close to, obviously, otherwise you'd go completely mad. But I just had that little confirmation this morning. I'm still laughing about it. It's delightful. I'm not going to tell that person. I'll probably freak out and head for the hills as people do. But it's delightful. It's like, it's actually timing it. I was like, I wonder if I'm accurate in this assumption I'm making about this person's spirit, living person. And bing, bam, boom, baby, right on time. Ding! Actually, they were 20 minutes earlier. I was like, that's interesting. They're trying to trick me, but I don't think so. I think it would just depend on whatever was going on in the space-time continuum. And but it's nothing romantic or anything sort of, people, but just I'm monitoring this intensity that I have, this individual, and the telepathy I have. I'm taking note of it. And if they watch their video, they'll be laughing too, because I even mentioned it the other day. I was like, oh, there you are, right on time. Bing, bam, boom, baby. Never underestimate the Tanya and her telepathy. I underestimate myself. I always say, oh, I'm so crazy, I'm so mad, I'm imagining it, I've got the wrong end of the stick. Often I do, though, because it gets confusing at times. And I put myself down and I doubt myself, and you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. In recent months, I've come to realise there's nothing wrong with this brain. I mean, it spirals under and it spirals back up again, and it's a bit squidgy sometimes. But if my spirit people want me to be attuned to someone, it's very, very accurate and intense. So I'm keeping note of that. It's a shame in a way. It's a shame that person's not available, because it's quite powerful, our telepathy. But I have it with my friend Jared too. I don't get creeped out, people, of it. It's harmless. It's just something that I'm just amused about at the moment. But I have it with my friend Lynn, I have it with my friend Jared, I have it with my psychiatrist, I have it with this person, although I've only realised how very attuned it's become in recent months, for no specific reason, And I may have it with a few other people too, but it's just getting astonishing. It's getting astonishing, people. It's kind of, my abilities have increased since that last, what I thought was a near death on the night of the 10th of July, 10th, 11th July. So it's kind of blowing my head back a bit, It's harmless though. I mean, what's it going to do it's not going to make me money, it's not going to bring me a loving partner, it's not going to do anything particularly wondrous to my life, but I'm just kind of observing it all and keeping a little bit tabs on it, because out of interest and curiosity. We've got another storm coming, full-on big storm coming. And it's coming up from the south, so there you go. Right, but yes, I pick up vibes, and that's when you see me sort of look away, sort of slightly to the left or sometimes to the right, go quiet. I'm I'm sensing something or someone doing a bit miraculous. Right, had your drink, made a mess with your water, had a wonderful time, Charlie. We're near the end of the story, so I must move away. We're near the end, and I'm excited. It's been a wonderful story. I enjoyed this one, actually. I think I enjoyed it a little bit more than the last one, even though I'm tired. So I'll just repeat where I segued. I'm sorry about that. It must be frustrating at times, but it's Tanya. His nephew will not venture to stay my hand, for an he do but move a finger or toe. With that intent another stab will settle his earthly account. Still must I wait a while until the slave boy and the cook maid shall have eaten and lain down to rest them in the kitchen. Morgiana, however, watched him wistfully, and divining his purpose, said in her mind, I must not allow this villain advantage over my lord. It's time I put my Viking beads back in my hair. I haven't worn them for a while. Time to do that. I'm not going to go dancing tonight. I'm too tired. Don't think so anyway. The Brooklyn Standard can have a Friday night without me holding up my small corner of the multiverse. Babies. Said in her mind, I must not allow this villain advantage over my lord, but by some means I must make void his project and at once put an end to the life of him. Well, she loves murdering things, doesn't she? I mean, people. She really quite enjoys it, I think. She could come quite useful. But no, Charlie. We abhor violence, don't we, Charlie? This is absolutely necessary to defend myself. I abhor violence. Shh, don't tell them. Accordingly, the trustee, I like people to think that I'm crazy and violent and dangerous, actually quite sweet and loving, gentle, just depends on the circumstances, does it not, Charlie? Accordingly, the trusty slave girl, getting tetchy again, Charlie, changed her dress with all haste and donned such clothes as dancers wear. Maybe it's a sign I should go dancing. But no. She vowed, I could change my mind though, I do change my mind. She veiled her face with a costly kerchief. Around her head she bound a fine turban, and about her middle she tied a waistcloth worked with gold and silver, wherein she stuck a dagger whose hilt was rich in filigree and jewellery. How did a slave girl afford such an ornate dagger and gold and silver waistbands? The plot thickens, I think. Thus disguised, she said to the slave boy Abdullah, take now thy tambourine, that we may play and sing and dance in honour of our master's guest. So he did her bidding, and the twain went into the room, the lad playing and the lass following. Then making a low congé, a low congé. Oh, that must be kind of a bow or curtsy or something. They asked leave to perform and disport and play, and Ali Baba gave permission, saying, dance now, and do your best that this our guest may be mirthful and merry. Quoth Khwaja Hassan, O my lord, thou dost indeed provide much pleasant entertainment. Then the slave boy Abdullah, standing by to strike the tambourine, whilst Morgiana rose up and showed her perfect art, and pleased them vastly with graceful steps and sportive motion, and like my thromping and thrashing and moshing and stomping. And suddenly drawing the poniard from her belt, she brandished it and paced from side to side, a spectacle which pleased them most of all. At times also she stood before them, now clapping the sharp-edged dagger under her armpit, and then setting it against her breast. Lastly, she took the tambourine from the slave boy Abdullah, and still holding the poniard in her right, she went round the largesse, as is the custom amongst merrymakers. First she stood before Ali Baba, who threw a gold coin into the tambourine, and his nephew likewise put in an Ashrafi. Then Khwaja Hassan, seeing her about to approach him, fell to pulling out his purse, when she heartened her heart, and quick as the blinding levin, she plunged the dagger into his vitals, and forthwith the miscreant fell back stone dead. Ali Baba was dismayed and cried in his wrath, "O unhappy, what is this deed thou hast done to bring about my ruin?" His ruin? He's not the one stabbed in his vitals, by all the gods. But she replied, "Nay, O my lord, rather to save thee, and not to cause thee harm, have I slain this man. Loosen his garments, and see what thou wilt discover thereunder." So Ali Baba searched the dead man's dress, and found concealed therein a dagger. Then said Morgiana, "This wretch was thy deadly enemy. Consider him well. He is none other than the oil merchant, the captain of the band of robbers. Whenas he came hither with intent to take thy life, he would not eat thy salt. And when thou toldest me that he wished not any in the meat, I suspected him, and at first sight I was assured that he would surely do thee die. Almighty Allah be praised, 'tis even as I thought." Clever girl. Then Ali Baba lavished upon her thanks and expressions of gratitude, saying, "Lo, these 2 times thou hast saved me from his hand," and falling upon her neck, he cried, See thou art free, and as reward for this thy fealty, I have wedded thee to my nephew." Well, wait a minute. Does she really need to be wedded to his nephew? It might just be enough that such a clever woman is free and can live out her life in joy and contentment and marry someone of her choosing. How's that for a kick? Then, turning to the youth, he said, "Do as I bid thee, and thou shalt prosper." So he threatens his nephew, the youth, into marrying her as well. "I would that thou marry Morgiana, who is a model of duty and loyalty, that she is. She's killed 38 people to keep him happy, by the gods. And thou seest now yon Khwaja Hassan sought thy friendship only, that he might find opportunity to take my life, and this maiden with her good sense and her wisdom hath slain him and saved us." She is really worthy of being a queen, isn't she? Saving her family and her people. Projection. I haven't killed anyone though, just saying. got no blood on my hands, although it came very close on a few occasions in my life. And each one would have bloody utterly deserved it too. Those filthy dogs that were living out at Waterford West. Probably still are for all we know. Anyway, life goes on, babies. The Holy One in all I nearly said masturbations. The Holy One in all manifestations of glory and righteousness and honour and fealty and grace. Let go, let God. They shall reap what they have sown. Maybe if not in this life, then some other time. I was shown that in 2008 on Today Tonight television program, Channel 7. I was shown the possibilities of the vengeance of the Lord. Ali Baba's nephew straightway consented to marry Morgiana, after which the three, raising the dead body, bore it forth with all heed and vigilance, and privily buried it in the garden, and for many years no one knew aught thereof. In due time Ali Baba married his brother's son to Morgiana with great pomp, and spread a bride feast in most sumptuous fashion. Oh, the English do like that word sumptuous, don't they? Are you feeling sumptuous today, lads? For his friends and neighbours, and made merry with them, and enjoyed singing and all manner of dancing and amusements. Matter of fact, I might be feeling a bit sumptuous myself right now. He prospered in every undertaking, and time smiled upon him, and a new source of wealth was opened to him. Oh, blessed be. Time's kind of smiling on me too. Yet to achieve the wealth though, but by the grace of the Holy One, in time. For fear of the thieves, he had not once visited the jungle cave wherein lay the treasure, since the day he had carried forth the corpse of his brother Cassim. But some time after, he mounted his hackney one morning and journeyed thither with all care and caution, till finding no signs of man or horse, and reassured in his mind, he ventured to draw near the door. Then, alighting from his beast, he tied it up to a tree, and, going to the entrance, pronounced the words which he had not forgotten: "Open, O Sim Sim." Open sesame. Hereat, as was its wont, the door flew open, and entering thereby, he saw the goods and hoard of gold and silver, untouched and lying as he had left them. So he felt assured that, still picking up vibes, babies. So he felt assured that not one of all the thieves remained alive, and that save himself there was not a soul who knew the secret of the place. At once I'm going to have to glue those in place. Don't like them swiveling everywhere. There. At once he bound in his saddlecloth a load of ashrafis, such as his horse could bear, and brought it home, and in after days He showed the hoard to his sons and sons' sons and taught them how the door could be caused to open and shut. Thus, Ali Baba and his household lived all their lives in wealth and joyance in that city where erst he had been a pauper, and by the blessing of that secret treasure, he rose to high degree and dignities. If I were a rich man, dee-da-lee-da-lee-da-lee-da-lee-da-lee-da-lee-da-lam, all day long I'd beat a bum if I were a wealthy man. As the morning morrowed, Scheherazade held her peace until the next day. So, blessed be, people of earth, I've reached completion, 2 hours and 31 minutes, it's a lot, plus the 40 minutes I did with my other musing. I think it was 39 minutes, plus the 16 minutes I did for part 1 where we got chopped off. That's 40, 56, I'm going to say another hour, 3 hours and 31 minutes, and I wonder why I'm fucking exhausted. Well, anyway, what else would I be doing with my time? Cleaning the rest of the copper and dusting the rest of the kitchen, dusting and cleaning the windows in the rest of the house. That has to be done, by the way. Sooner or later I'll have to face it. But I had fun obfuscating from my diligence and roles as a post-COVIDian domestic goddess housefrau in denial. So there was that, my darlings. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the space-time continuum. I need to employ some more servants, but I don't have any money. And I'm grateful for my beautiful Rati, don't get me wrong, but she only has 2 jobs that she gets paid to do, and the rest of the house is intensely needing to be dealt with, and I have to think hard. I'll either have to get up very early in the morning and I'm full of zest and vigour and do it then, or I need to bring in extra staff. How's that for grandiosity? Did you hear what I just said? By the gods. But it is a lot to keep up all the polishing and dusting and washing the windows and, you know. So I'm grateful for the help I get, don't get me wrong, but it's still a lot. How can I avoid it? Go and live in I said to Rati, I'll have to go and live in a cave with nothing, no possessions at all, be a complete ascetic hermit. She just smiled at me lovingly because she knows how my mind works. She just stood there smiling, and I went, fuck it, Rati, I'd have to keep a fucking cave clean too. She just smiled wisely because she knew I was going to come out with that. But anyway, she's a wonderful friend as well as assistant, and I'm grateful for her help. So there you go, people of earth. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, or in my religion, Be'ezrat Hashem, the Ruh Haba'ah, that means blessed be he who comes. Life gets better for me in the immediate future, and get my shit together, I get my house perfectly arranged. Well, it's perfectly arranged now, but perfectly cleansed and purified and dusted and polished, and I get control over my own domain, and all wondrous magical things that are present here in 3D reality come to fruition, and I might even work on my book. I started working on it mysteriously vanished a few months ago and then just as mysteriously popped back in again. That was odd. But yes, it's another thing that I keep procrastinating on. I think I got weirded out how it disappeared and came back. And then I had doubts and fears about whether it was worth working on or continuing with. And then I freaked out and then I started reading fairy stories because nothing says avoiding life by living in fantasy land. So there was that. But I'm not in fantasy land. I'm a real woman with real passions and real hearts and real heart and real desires and real sweetness and true love. And one day, with harm to none and competition from none, it might just come true for me too. Bye for now, my gorgeous people of Earth and all sentient beings. She's going to do a massive shit on me again. And all sentient beings and all interdimensional, ultra-dimensional entities, may we live in peace, shalom, salam, in honour and integrity, in grace and in goodness and kindness, in abundance and positive potentiates, and if possible greater wealth and better health, surrounded with and by our truest, deepest loves, friends, companions, associates, tribe, live happily ever after, just like a fairy story, only real. With harm to none and competition from none, because I'm determined about that. Don't want to be the cause of anyone else's. My joy shall not be at the expense of someone else's joy and harmonic resonance and peace. So there is that. Means I live a long and fucking lonely life though, because I'm determined to live in honour and in peace with my own soul. Amen, Vasila. On that note, bye for now. Love you all. Doesn't mean I'm not going to love the ones I love. I'm not going to stop loving the ones I love. I'm just going to, accept what is, and carry on enjoying my life. Reading stories and dancing on the weekend. I might go dancing tomorrow to Fitzy's. I'll see how I feel tomorrow. If I stay home and rest tonight and I don't read any crazy but wondrous fairy stories tomorrow and I conserve my energy, I might have energy to dance tomorrow night. So we'll see how we go, people of Earth. In the meantime, sei gesund, stay healthy, be good, live your best lives.